In a cold part of Canada, under thick ice, researchers found a strange skeleton. They called it the ice dragon. It stayed hidden in frozen ground for ages. Experts spent many years identifying its type. It turned out to be a huge flying reptile with long wings. Its skull was bigger than the rest of its body. These reptiles lived tens of millions of years ago, soaring high when dinosaurs still walked the land. Many scientists saw them as the largest and fiercest flyers in ancient times. This new kind was named after the words that mean ice dragon of the north winds. A few years ago, a young climber was on Mont Blanc, one of the tallest peaks in Western Europe. He spotted a small metal box peeking out of the snow. He pried it open and found many precious gems like rubies and sapphires. He took the box to the local police at once. Later, officials figured out it had likely come from a flight that crashed in the mountains decades ago. The contents were worth a lot of money. They still hoped to find the rightful owner of that lost treasure. In a remote area of northwest Siberia, a reindeer herder and his sons spotted something unusual in the ice. It turned out to be a baby mammoth, perfectly frozen for thousands of years. They named it Luba. At the time, it was the best preserved mammoth of its kind. Tests showed it had been in the ice for almost 42,000 years and was only about a month old when it passed away. Luba's body is about the size of a regular calf. Sometimes museums around the world display Luba for the public. On the frozen continent of Antarctica, covered in deep layers of ice, stands a famous volcano called Mount Arabus. Explorers first saw it in the 1800s. It rises over 12,000 feet high and has been active for more than 1 million years. Deep inside, there is a lake of lava. Though it sometimes erupts, the outbursts are small and not likely to do harm. Long ago, 2 hikers in the Italian Alps found a body in the ice. They assumed it was a lost climber from recent times. Later, scientists discovered the remains were more than 5,000 years old. They called him Otzi. Because of the cold conditions, his body stayed in good shape. Research showed he had tattoos and that his last meal was a meat dish, much like modern bacon. Experts say he has living relatives in Central Europe even now. In Siberia, researchers were studying the burrows of ancient squirrels and found seeds that had been encased in ice for 32,000 years. These seeds came from a flower that had gone extinct. Scientists managed to grow that same flower from the old plant tissue. Now this bloom has been brought back to life and is planted in many parts of the world. In 1930, a team of scientists from Norway went to a dangerous place known as White Island in the Arctic Ocean. They thought no person had ever set foot there. To their surprise, they saw the tip of a small boat buried in the snow. Frozen inside were personal items and a jacket with the name S.A. Andre. It belonged to a group of explorers who tried to reach the North Pole by hot air balloon in 1897. No one had heard from them until that day, over 30 years later. It turned out the balloon had crashed soon after they began their journey. They tried to move on by boat, but never made it back. A frozen mammoth named Yucca was discovered in Siberia in 2010. It had been in the permafrost for 39,000 years. From its remains, scientists learned many new details about mammoths. They even managed to activate some of Yucca's cells in a lab a few years ago, stirring hopes that mammoths might walk the earth again one day. Most people see photos of Antarctica as a flat, icy land. Scientists thought the same until they used radar to study an area in the early 2000s. They found that the small rocky hills there were actually the tops of a giant mountain range buried under a mile of ice. These mountains are about 10,000 feet high and stretch for hundreds of miles, roughly the same size as the European Alps. They have simply been hidden under ice for countless years. A man who owned a gold mine in Siberia was walking by a frozen river when he spotted a small, woolly rhino. It was later named Sasha. This creature had been extinct for 15,000 years. Tests showed Sasha might have been stuck in ice for as long as 39,000 years. It is the only complete woolly rhino body ever found.